Hello and welcome to Talking Points. I'm Dave Kelly, Director of Advanced Media Production at Long Beach State University. Today we'll be talking about the future of the university under the leadership of new President, Dr. Jane Close Conoley. Dr. Conoley, welcome to Talking Points and thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to have this opportunity to speak with you, Dave.
I'd like to talk about your background later in the show, but to start the conversation, I want to talk about some of your initial impressions of the campus. And you've been here a short while, but long enough to have formed some initial impressions. I noticed that on the campus website you wrote that the campus demonstrates a sense of hope, resilience, and caring. Now, how did you arrive at those words to describe your initial impressions?
Oh, that's a great question because, of course, I'm a psychologist and I study positive psychology and positive motivation. So I'm particularly attuned to what goes on that reflects issues of, do we have a goal? Do we feel like we have the resilience and the resources to reach that goal? And how are we reflecting that we care about the social group that we are part of? And on each of those dimensions, it's all over our websites and it's in every conversation that I have with faculty and staff and students and alums that Cal State Long Beach cares about student success. We've done things to ensure that. We have evidence that we've improved student success. The faculty are excited about creative things they've done in the classroom as well as their research. And I can see in the way that the students approach me when they meet me across campus that they expect to be greeted warmly, which I do, of course, but there's not that sense of distance. So I can tell that they have experienced and expect to experience a caring environment. And we do an awful lot to make sure they do well in their classes, that they get their classes, and of course our student services group performs enormous tasks to get them connected with each other, get them connected to activities, make sure their housing is acceptable, if a lot smaller than they're used to.
Well, it's nice to hear that we have a warm environment, even though we do have 35,000 students and a number of faculty and staff members and so on. Of all the things you've seen, what has encouraged you the most as you begin your time here as new president?
I think I'm very much encouraged by the fact that at least the previous two presidents that I have the most information about have really set a really strong foundation. This is a well-managed university. There's a lot of data out there and readily accessible for public scrutiny. The teams that I've been working with communicate well with each other. Faculty communicating with administrative leadership, student leadership communicating with us, and also our partners, certainly our Long Beach City College partner, our Long Beach Unified School District, and now especially our city. All those people and all those individuals have reached out to me, and I can, my belief in terms of getting things done is to promote partnerships and set goals and go after them, and then set higher goals. And I see that has happened with leadership from President Maxson and President Alexander. They've built these partnerships, and so I feel like I have the opportunity to, be benefited by that, but also the motivation to even improve those.
And we'll be talking more about our new mayor later on, as well as the Long Beach College Promise, which is pretty unique to Long Beach and to the country, in fact.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, yeah.
But before we go further, I want to talk about the community and the impact on the community and the impact on the region, because we're now not only airing this program in Long Beach, but we're on YouTube, which means people can see us worldwide, and we're also airing on a number of stations throughout California, educational and governmental channels who have decided to pick up the program. But just to give some statistics, we're 65 years old, this campus. They call us the 49ers because we started in 1949. You are now the 7th president, and we have a number of alumni, obviously, over those 65 years. Tell us a little bit about the impact that our alumni have on the state of California.
Well, it's really enormous. We have almost 300,000 alums, and the great majority, I think about 85%, actually live in California, and a big portion of that 85% actually live within 100 miles of the campus, I'm told. I haven't met them all yet, but that's what I'm told. Well, even there, when you think about 300,000 Californians, you know, or close to that, from Long Beach. So you can see just on that. And I have met now a number of alums and in San Francisco and along the coast and around Orange County and of course in Long Beach. And these are people who are making a difference in the communities in which they live. They've started businesses, they're lawyers, they're teachers, they're physicians, they're nurses. So they're having an enormous impact on their particular communities. And that's just what our alums do. You know, we are, I'm sure, not, I don't think we're the biggest employer in our region, but we're a big employer in our region. And I think we extend that influence by the partnerships that we've established with industry and business so that we're forging connections to really accelerate the economic development of our region. You know, many people probably don't think of universities in that way, but in fact, you know, that's a big part of certainly the vision that I have for Long Beach State.
Absolutely, and I know that the CSU commissioned a study a few years ago about the impact, the financial impact the CSU has on the state, and I think in that study they determined that for every dollar that taxpayers invest in the CSU returns about $4 to $5 into the California economy. So
wow.
there's quite an impact that we make on the economy as well as in all other aspects of society. Yes. I want to talk about your priorities for the campus. What will be your priorities as you begin your time here as president?
Well, as I mentioned before, in terms of trying to build on a solid history, I think the work we've done on making sure we offer rich learning experiences, connections to undergraduate research as well as graduate research, and the kind of environment that faculty and staff want to come here and that they want to stay here. So I think, you know, my top priority is to make sure that all of those things that we have in place now continue and in fact accelerate. And I think we have a chance to accelerate them, because although our budget situation has not returned to pre-recession levels, it has improved and we're not being cut, so that's a really good thing. So we're able to hire more faculty. We're able to fill a few of those staff positions so that staff aren't doing 2 or 3 jobs now. So everything I'll talk about and everything I think about is around student success, but of course student success is a complicated business. It has to do with them getting their classes, but it also has to do what's going on in those classes, and are we supporting faculty to, for example, develop hybrid models, so there's some online aspects of their classes, or being able to have field experiences for classes. So I'd say the first thing is student success, but more broadly, my priority is always to see how to create environments in which people can succeed. And you know, that means giving people autonomy, it means giving them the resources they need, it means giving them authentic feedback about what's going right, and giving them alternative avenues if things are not going right. So I think that's what a leader does best, is create situations where people can do their best.
And fortunately, as you mentioned with the predecessors, we've created an environment for success where success comes easily here. It's not difficult, and that's great. And I know that from your previous experiences, even at UC Riverside, where you were interim chancellor, you received high marks for being effective and having an impact even in a short time. We'll talk more about that later. But first I want to talk about the fact that you did meet with the mayor, our new mayor, Robert Garcia, who is not only a graduate of Long Beach State University, but he was also student body president here. And at this event, we had our other partners in the Long Beach College Promise. Let's talk about the Long Beach College Promise. It's the concept of seamless education. What does that mean?
It means that on the ground, that the community college instructors, professors are talking to the K-12 staff, so that the K-12 staff understands what does it take to be ready for math as a freshman, what does it take to be ready in English as a freshman. It means reaching down to preschool with help from the university, the city college, and of course the Unified School District, and making sure that 4- and 5-year-old doesn't start behind. And so many of our young kids at 5 years old, when they enter kindergarten, are already not ready for kindergarten. They don't know colors, they don't know shapes, they don't know their name. They don't recognize their name written, I should say. They do know their names. So it's looking together as a partnership, K-12, City College, the university, at these high leverage moments and joining forces. And so high leverage moment is preschool, making sure that we have access for especially low income kids, but really universally available for 3, 4, and 5 year olds. And then around middle school transition, are we having the kinds of math instruction and English instruction that really moves students to be ready for high school? And then, City College prepares a large number of the students who transfer in to Long Beach State. And in fact, we've seen a dramatic improvement in the math readiness and the English readiness. These are the two areas that are typically problematic. So I think math ready have tripled, English ready have doubled, or it's the opposite, but it's really great. So seamless means that a student always knows that the next step is actually moving him or her to that goal, and won't be surprised when they arrive at City College and go, ooh, I didn't know that. I didn't know I needed to know that. Yeah.
We videotaped the event where you met with all of the folks involved in the College Promise, and in that presentation that you gave, I believe you said something along the lines of about 618 new freshmen are coming to the university this fall as a result of the College Promise, and something on the order of 457 City College transfers from Long Beach City College. Where do we take Long Beach College Promise from here into the future?
Well, I think there's still more to do. We're collaborating now on a major proposal for innovation. What are some new things that we can do that could accelerate even more? We could take more students if they're ready, and so the numbers are good and they're promising. But we want very much to keep our local impact. Cal State Long Beach had 83,000 applicants last year, and about 50,000 plus were for freshmen and the remainder for transfers. But we want that local connection, so we need to keep working to have even more students ready in terms of their coursework and their achievement. So we'll be looking for other high leverage points, and I think, I'm not sure exactly what we'll come up with because we're writing this now, but I think the next step is not to be satisfied. I should have answered it that way right to begin with. Don't be satisfied with what we're doing, just keep moving it forward. Because we are a model. There's almost no place else in the United States or in the world that has achieved what we have, but if President Oakley were here or Superintendent Steinhauser were here, we'd all agree we could do more.
And as you mentioned, we're a national model in terms of the College Promise, but we've hit the midpoint here, so we're going to have to take a break. We'll continue this conversation when we return. And for our viewers, when we return, we'll be talking about university development and the real purpose of higher education. Stay with us.
Thinking of going back to school? It's easy with Open University at Cal State Long Beach. Open University allows you to enroll in available fall 2014 courses without going through formal admission procedures. Update your skills and earn academic credit. Whatever your goals may be, Cal State Long Beach and the College of Continuing and Professional Education can help you reach higher. Open University enrollment begins August 25th.
Welcome back to Talking Points. I'm Dave Kelly. My guest today is new president of Long Beach State University, Dr. Jane Close Conoley. We've been talking about student success and the connection between Long Beach State University and the community at large. And Dr. Conoley, when we left right before the break, we were talking about the College Promise, our connection to the community and our other educational partners. And the topic of student success came up. What more can you tell us about our efforts to encourage student success?
Well, we're talking extensively now about how to be more effective in involving the parents of our freshmen or transfer students in the educational process, mainly so that they understand what it means to get a B or a C or an A, and when the grades are coming, and how they might be involved in encouraging their students, and how they should feel free to contact us when they have questions about what's the sequence of courses. Is my student, they're not youngsters anymore, my young adult, is he or she taking the courses that are going to lead to progress in a major? Many of our parents have not gone to college themselves, and so they may not have that kind of knowledge of the hidden curriculum. Other parents might say to their student, go talk to your professor, form a relationship with him or her, ask how you might be involved in the professor's research. Some of our parents won't know to say that to our students, so we want to make sure that we get that information to our parents. We also have to be, I think, very mindful that our students come in with enormous creativity, energy, lots of prior knowledge, and looking for ways always to promote that, because the best way to learn is to build on what you already know. And sometimes we have to remind them what they already know. And that's a great way for them to experience early success and feel more engaged. So we'll be looking at all those, and we have some specific plans, and we've been connecting with some researchers in the area of student engagement and parent engagement. So I think that's very exciting, I think very forward-thinking, cutting-edge set of activities we'll be working on.
Speaking of research and educational leadership, I do want to talk about your background just a little bit. Excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I believe you got your PhD at University of Texas at Austin.
That's right.
And then you spent time at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, both in research, teaching, and leadership roles.
That's right.
From there, I believe it was Texas A&M University, also teaching leadership roles. And then, of course, UC Santa Barbara, where you were the Dean of the Gewurz Graduate School of Education.
That's right.
During that time, you had the opportunity to serve as interim chancellor of UC Riverside. And interestingly enough, the former chancellor of UC Riverside is now the chancellor of the CSU system, Dr. Timothy White. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, when you were at UC Riverside during that short period of about 9 or 10 months, I believe it was, you made an impact. And even though it was a short period of time, and that's to be highly praised, because all of us, in whatever we do and whatever we may pursue in life, want to make an impact. And to be able to do that in such a short time, again, is highly praised. I wanted to ask you about the CSU, the transition from the UC into the CSU, and what that was like for you. And maybe for the benefit of our audience, could you help us understand what's the difference between the UC and the CSU? How are we actually similar, and how are we different?
Well, we may be much more similar than different, but we reflect, the UC, the CSU, the community college system reflect decisions made, I believe, in the 60s, the California Master Plan. And I would say that looking at it from afar years ago, many educational leaders and policymakers were quite in awe that California had figured out a master plan. The master plan, when figured out, essentially guaranteed essentially a free education to students who would work hard. So you could go to a community college, you could transfer to a CSU or a UC, and the tuition was negligible at that time. And I meet many Californians who have gone through that system, and they're quite surprised that what it costs now. And the notion was that the CSU would take the bulk of the undergraduates, would have majors that were quite comprehensive, but perhaps more oriented toward my next step is a profession. I'm going to go out and be a teacher, I'm going to go out and be a nurse, I'm going to go out and be a whatever, and that. Of course, Long Beach has the particular notoriety of having such a large artistic and theatrical, musical entity, so that's an unusual kind of next step that we have. And that the UC would be the center for research and not the home for the majority of undergraduates. They would take care of most of the PhDs, and they would be producing the next generation of professors who might teach at the CSU or might go nationally or internationally. And it was funded in that way. Great idea. Problem now, no longer funded in that way. And so CSU has had to look for more alternative sources of funding, research grants, MOUs, other things. So it moves our faculty a little bit closer to a focus on research, other scholarly activities, and creative activities that were certainly present historically, but perhaps now are more heightened. I think the important thing is, though, that the original plan was that we would have a mission to be accessible, that any Californian who wanted to really work hard could get a degree, a higher education degree. And 30 years ago, that was important, but, well, it's more than 30. I keep forgetting how long ago the 60s are. So a long time ago, it was important. Right now, it's critical. Almost every career where you can make a living wage requires a high school, community college, university degree, a university degree. And so we retain that mission, unfortunately without the funding, to be accessible. The challenge we have is to be accessible, come if you're willing to work hard, but also offer excellence so that when they graduate, in fact, they are prepared, and they're prepared to go to graduate school if they want to pursue that line, or if they want to go into a profession. In fact, they're stars in that particular profession. And I don't want to digress too much from your question, but I've met with employers already in this region who all say, and from teachers to nurses to engineers to marketing people, who all say that our students, when they arrive, they are ready. So, the UC, the teaching load there for undergraduates is quite low. Many UC professors may teach one class a year for undergraduates, but that's not their mission. 50% of their time is available for research. We started out and we continue, and I think we embrace and celebrate the mission that students can come to us and they will, in fact, be ready to be successful in the 21st century. So I'm excited about that. Nothing stays static, obviously, and there's a lot of moving parts, and funding will drive some changes, I think.
Well, you mentioned funding and the evolution of the system over the many years that we've been here, and I think this brings up the importance of development, university development. And university development is a process. You have to bring in the outside community. You need to bring in those corporations, those institutions, and those prominent alumni who've done well. Mm-hmm. And there's a sense of service and a sense of contribution that it's going to be required if we want to build this system and rebuild the system after some of what some people would call devastating budget cuts of the past few years.
Oh, yes.
Talk about university development and how important is that in the hierarchy of needs here?
Well, I would say for my role, it's one of my top time assignments because I think as president, I play more of the external face of the university. So it is very much my job to partner with our advancement development people, our deans, to look for relationships that can be built and nurtured. And some of those would result in, we hope, people giving us money, sure. But it's more than that. We need people who will give our students, our graduates, jobs. We need people who have connections in industry, business, and politics with policymakers who can get us in front of the right people to make our case, to illustrate why what we do is important. Why is it important not to have just online degrees only, Well, because not every young person can benefit from that. We can't be, put into a box that's all about what's the most cost-effective and streamlined approach. It's got to be what's the most effective approach. So I think we do look to alums, and actually more than half of the money we have raised through philanthropy in this past year, which has been about $28 million, I think, I think 57% of that has come from alums. That's huge. And we look for alums who certainly are very successful. We have many of them who have lots of resources, but also the recent alums who might send us $5 a year and know that that's an investment for the next generation of student, because if 1,000 of them send $5, then we're all set for supporting, almost fully supporting a student. So it's an important thing, and it's new for many state universities. When I joined the UC Santa Barbara faculty in 2006, they were doing their first comprehensive campaign in 2006, we are about to launch our first comprehensive campaign. So there was a time where we depended on the state. The state was investing in the state's future by educating its citizens. Now we can't count on that. And so we have to look for alternative sources. And some of that will come through private philanthropy. I could say that better, right. Philanthropy. And others will come through agreements, MOUs, industrial R&D kinds of things, or business partnerships with marketing, public relations, things that benefit both us, but also benefit our community.
And we should talk about the purpose of higher education. We just have a couple of minutes left, so we'll do this quickly. But basically, you were quoted once by the UC Santa Barbara Current, which is a publication up there, where you were addressing this issue of the purpose of higher education, and you said, quote, "We as an American society have begun to drift away from the notion that to educate people is an end unto itself, especially in today's world of changing careers and new opportunities and globalization. Whether you're an art history major or a computer science major, you might end up doing many different things. In the United States, we have a kind of commercialization of education that I think will not support our leadership position in the world." What did you mean by that? Again, we only have about a minute left.
Well, I think there's a common thought now that we educate people for a particular job, but we all know that those particular jobs are changing very dynamically. And so we need to educate people to be critical thinkers, to be creative, to be resilient, to be able to find their place, and to be entrepreneurs, as a matter of fact. So this very narrow economic education is the wrong direction. It's also ineffective to just teach people what we already know. We have to teach them to be cutting edge. And that's why universities need to be given the time and the resources for research, for scholarly and other creative activities, because we're creating knowledge. We're not just transmitting knowledge, if we want that leadership position in the world.
This conversation could go on for a long time, but
Yes,
unfortunately we've run out of time for this one. And we hope that we'll be able to bring you back again in the future, and we'll continue this conversation.
Great, I'd love that. Thanks, Dave.
And thank you for joining us on Talking Points. Join us again for another episode soon. Until then, I'm Dave Kelly. Have a nice day.